Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on this Sunday afternoon. Of course, it's Super Bowl Sunday here at Gulfstream Park and the day after the Grade 2 Holy Bowl. We had excellent racing on tap yesterday and 12 more to go for this afternoon too, Acacia.
We do. We have a fun card today to talk about though too, but let's talk about that Holy Bowl. It was a very impressive finish from Grand Motion's Irish Warcry, who did pull the upset yesterday over your juvenile champ, of course, Breeders' Cup Juvenile and Eclipse Award winner Classic Empire.
Let's see that spotlight there as we go back to yesterday's last race. That was the Grade 2 Holy Bull, and we can see Irish Warcry, and you and I were trackside for this race, and we noticed something from the two favorites in Gunavera and Classic Empire. They just seemed really washed out, kind of nervous, and we saw Irish Warcry just absolutely composed leading into the gate, and you and I were kind of like, oh, this horse is going to run a pretty good race today.
Oh yeah, big time. You could really tell that he just acted so much more professional, and I did speak to trainer Grand Motion afterwards, and he says that he's seen an improved level of maturity from him, and you could see from that replay he was still a little bit green in the stretch, and that means that he's probably still going to improve off of that, even though it was a very good performance. Of course, Classic Empire off a bit of a freshening coming into that race, and he was a little bit hesitant loading into the gate. Gunavera a bit warm as well. He had to actually check and steady a couple times throughout the race as well, but Irish Warcry definitely kind of stamped himself as a 3-year-old contender.
And we did see kind of in the paddock and even trackside the heavy favorite and juvenile champion Classic Empire a little bit on the nervous side, as you said, hesitant to get into the gate, and the connections kind of saying he didn't necessarily ship well. All of his other races he had been already at the track, whether it be at Keeneland, Santa Anita, Saratoga, so maybe that had something to do with it, but definitely an impressive performance from Irish Warcry. And Laurel Park actually doing really well with some of these horses. We saw Irish Warcry coming out of a Laurel Stake in the last race. We saw Tecalita take the Grade 2 forward gal from a stake race at Laurel. And then, of course, we saw the Withers with Maryland connections. We saw Ella Reeb get the Withers up in New York with Trevor McCarthy for trainer Cal Lynch.
And that was a very impressive victory in Ella Reeb, too. So a very exciting time of year as we are seeing all of these Derby prep races. And it's always interesting to me to see maybe who was so successful as a 2-year-old, perhaps just a little bit more precocious, and those that do take a little bit more time to mature. And now is kind of when all the pieces start moving. So you kind of get that energy building around this time of year.
It's a fun season, but it's also a very frustrating season because, you know, horses they go kind of in and out of form. And as you said, horses who might have done well in their 2-year-old season might regress as a 3-year-old and flip-flop. So I can remember leading into last year's Kentucky Derby, it was a bit of a head scratcher. So interested to get things kicked off, and we do get to today's card, and when we wanted to show you our featured wagers today and our wagering menu. The race 1 does kick off that rolling super high 5. This wager, of course, takes place in every race of 7 or more betting interests. Then we get to race 1 still, but it does kick off the 50-cent early pick 5. Acacia will have a ticket for that. Moving along on this 12-race program, we have race 5 is a middle pick 4, that ever-popular middle pick 4 for 50 cents. And race 7 does start the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We had a guarantee in that yesterday and a nice carryover today, over $500,000 in that. And the late pick 5, we do have, it starts in race 8, 50-cent based wager as well. So lots to look forward to. We are fast and firm on the turf, 12 races on tap, noon post. We'll get through it so we can all get home to watch the Super Bowl.
Yes, we will try to get through it, and it does start off with the pick 5. So we'll give you a look at my ticket in here. Took a bit of a stab today, just using 2 horses to kick things off. You see that number 5 Starship Hurricane is actually taking all the early money. I'm also backing myself up with Tale of Preselli, 3 deep in the second race, using 2 horses in the third, with the first-time starter for Todd Pletcher and some with experience in Lenstar for Nick Zito. Then using 4 deep in the fourth race. I did think that that was a race to spread, and 2 deep in the fifth, $48.
All right, and we started off with the first race here. We're going on the main track at 6 furlongs. Non-winners of 2 lifetime condition in for that 6250 tag. And we wanted to show a video spotlight replay going back to the break of a race that several horses come out of and will once again face each other today. This is a break highlighting Golden Mila. You can see in the short comment she was bumped at the start, and she did. I thought though she kind of just broke a little slowly, and the 4-horse came and bumped her a little bit, taking her off stride. I didn't think it had a huge impact on the overall outcome of the race. But coming down the stretch, we can see Tale of Preselli, the number 3 horse, coming out actually and really squeezing Baby Antonella out of position. We see Baby Antonella checking very badly. And Dungeness, a horse who's back in here today, just kind of an unencumbered trip coming down the stretch. So if you're looking at this, you know, it was a very reckless performance, I thought, from Tale of Preselli.
It was, and Tale of Preselli's been in good form in the past couple, and certainly Baby Antonella took the worst of it in that race for sure. And I thought that Tale of Preselli was the one that was drifting the most. I did give a little bit of a nod to Dungeness. She was more towards the rail, as you said. She wasn't bothered by any of the trouble, but I did think that Dungeness and Tale of Preselli might be able to perhaps come out of here the strongest. But both you and I actually stayed away from that race as far as the top selection goes in Starship Hurricane, who I liked better sprinting all along. I like the cut back in distance for her.
Cut back in distance should be the right move for her. You see that she showed a lot of early speed and then just stopped last time out at the mile. Same kind of scenario when she faced 12,500 company in the race prior to that. So right move for Starship Hurricane. I also liked Queeb, who comes back to the main track after a series of turf sprints. And she really only has had one try on the main track, and that was actually against maiden $35,000 company. And she showed a little bit of speed that day. So I think she was outclassed, a much better field for her, and I do think she's capable of performing on the dirt.
Yeah, this does look like the right spot for her. And when she did sprint on the dirt in that one start, I actually didn't think it was a terrible race. So maybe this is just where she needs to be. She's certainly been working well.
Okay, turning the page to the second race on the card, a maiden 12,500 event, 6 furlongs onto the main track, and looking towards the inside, the number 2 Beach Tag, 2-1 on the morning line, tries to break the maiden today.
I gave this one the top spot today, though it was kind of hesitantly so, as she is running out of excuses. This is going to be her 10th career start. She does get Paco Lopez in the saddle, was a little bit more aggressive, which I think just might be what she needs, because she does have a bit of early speed, and she seems to show speed and then just kind of flatten out a little bit. And she's run good races where she's finished in the money. Maybe just a little bit more aggressive rider to kind of help her maintain that speed and get to the winner's circle instead of kind of just being stuck in the money.
This is a tough race to have confidence with really anybody, because you do get the presence of kind of long-time maidens in here, like my top selection, the 7 Milbra, but then you get other lightly raced horses who just have not shown anything. So Milbra, I know she is a long-time maiden, but some of those, since the claim, I thought she's been running okay races. She does seem a little bit pace dependent. We'll see how the pace shakes out in here. It's kind of hard to predict after some horses have gotten off to rough starts or just really not shown a lot of speed. I liked a little bit of a price in here in the 6 Vaina. Just the fact that Edgar Zayas does stay on board. I think she's better on a fast track. The blinkers go on. We could see her show a little bit more interest, as she did have some trouble breaking from the gate in her debut.
And a horse that has shown some speed, you were alluding to horses that are lightly raced and probably will take attention. The number 5 Spinning Star definitely looks to be one of those, but she's just seemed to show a little bit of really interest, and then she stops on a dime, and she's been beaten 18 lengths and 25 3/4 legs. So not on top for me today.
That's a tough race. As we'll turn the page to another maiden race, but a much better maiden race in a maiden special weight. 6 furlongs on the main track for this third race. And I thought a couple different ways to go, but we both land on the number 1 Lens Star for trainer Nick Zito. And we've been saying this. Nick Zito has been having a very sneaky good meet. He was, a couple of his horses finished well yesterday. He had a win the day before, and hopefully he has another win today.
I hope so. We both are on the Nick Zito bandwagon in this race, number 3. And this is the one with the most experience in this race, as I mentioned earlier, first-time starter for Todd Pletcher, and the number 4 Secret Recruit probably is bound to get quite a bit of play. But I thought Lenstar's last race in the slop, it was actually a sneaky good race. Now, the race 2 starts back, did have apprentice Katie Clausen aboard, a 10-pound apprentice, and he was just out and way in front of the rest of the field. Last time, I thought he was kind of wide. He was last early. I think he probably wanted to show more speed, but perhaps have it harnessed a little bit better. More experienced rider like Luis Saez in the saddle today, and this just might be the right spot for him to show speed from the rail, but not to have to expend all that energy early.
I agree. I think with the rail post position, we'll see Luis Saez get a little aggressive with his horse from the gate, and there was no beating the winner last time out in Malagasy. He was just so strong that day. So Lenstar getting back to a fast main track, I saw the race kind of the same way that you did, and you see the level of competition too. Even in his first start, he finished 4th behind Fact Finding, who was scratched at the Holy Bull yesterday, who we will see perhaps in the Sam Davis at Tampa next weekend as a Derby contender. So other than that, though, we have the 4 Secret Recruit, who is a first-time starter for Todd Pletcher, and sometimes you just cannot beat a first-time starter on the dirt for Todd Pletcher here.
Sometimes you can't, and this one's been working very well at Palm Beach Downs by To Honor and Serve out of a Speightstown mare, and she was precocious. She did win first out as well. We do also have a first-time starter in the number 2. We looked up this name several times. I believe it's Zako Yatsen for Efren Loza Jr. And we will show a stat on Efren Loza. In the past 5 years with first-time starters at Gulfstream, he's 24% win, 48% in the money, and a 285 ROI, and that's kind of been a little bit of a secret that's been getting out lately, I think. But this one, a nicely bred one to debut, might be one to have on those exacta trifecta wagers.
Exactly, and Zako Yatsen is out of a mare. She was a faster sprinter. She was a 4-time winner, and this horse is kin to a grade 3 winner on the dirt in My Happy Face, who was actually grade 1 place too. So there is a lot of pedigree to back up those decent workouts here, and that stat that we did show for Efren Loza Jr. Overall, he just does well with kind of his young horses at the maiden level, whether it's maiden claimers or maiden special weights. He does great work with that. So we saw it between those 3 contenders as we get to the 4th race, another maiden special weight, but on the turf at 7.5 furlongs. And I believe Giovanna was entered in a couple weeks ago and perhaps scratched, because I remember pulling this replay from Tampa, and we'll go back and show it once again. I think this horse was just second best behind a very well-meant first-time starter for Tom Proctor. We saw Lion Beach, the 3rd place finisher. That horse was running really well against Maiden Special Weight Company at Laurel. And this horse, she was game. She split horses, and I thought ran her race. Like I said, just couldn't quite see that well-meant first-time starter for Tom Proctor closing out in the center of the racetrack, who had a little bit more momentum.
A little bit more momentum, and Giovanna was also coming off of about a 10-month layoff too, so maybe she needed that race as a good setup to come in today. I thought it was a pretty strong performance, and she actually seemed to hop a little bit out of the gate too, and that's where she did try to show a little bit more speed, but just couldn't quite get it done there. But I thought that she ran very well in that race off the layoff, and I do think it sets her up nicely today. I did put her right on top, but there are several ways to go in this race, and if you remember in my pick 5, I did actually include the number 7 Euphorically, because I did have some interest in this one for Eddie Keneally trying the turf.
And she just has a pedigree that would suggest you will like turf. You look at her, she is a 4-year-old filly by Hard Spun. She's out of a Limehouse mare. The mare was a 2-time winner sprinting on the turf, and she actually, her best by her speed figure was a 79, and that was on the turf. So if she can run into those types of figures or anywhere near that ballpark range, I thought that she could take a huge improvement. And I like to see the most recent turf workout, Eddie Keneally maybe having confidence and trying her on the turf today, and always a positive sign to see it attracting the likes of Javier Castellano.
Absolutely. I had some interest in the number 4 Kept for Alan Goldberg, who does stretch out to 2 turns on the turf. turf. Found a good turf last time and was a bit wide, but did show a little bit of nice closing ability. Does have to prove that she can get the 2 turns in here, but I do think it's a positive rider switch to Joel Rosario, and she's been working in an excellent way on the Palm Meadows turf course too, so that also piqued my interest.
And looking at some others, including the 3 Caffeine, I know she's a longtime maiden and she's really starting to rack up those defeats, but I do think she might have tactical advantage in here, and maybe being the fastest early. Kept could show some speed stretching to 2 turns today, but overall I thought Caffeine could be forwardly placed, and a good race last time. She was at 7.5 furlongs, but like I said, she's starting to rack up those defeats.
Yeah, she is, and you know, Caffeine's my girl. I couldn't leave her off, and I do like, as I said before, that they haven't yet dropped her to maiden claiming. They kept her at maiden special weight. I do like her better at the 7.5 furlongs.
We get to the 5th race on the card. Non-winners of 3 lifetime condition, 6250 tag, 6 furlongs on the main track. Scratch the 1 Charming Fantasy in here, and we both land on the same horse in the number 4 Summer Whites, who I believe we have a stat on for Antonio Sano.
We do. Now this horse has been the favorite in her last 2. A couple people trying to chase her home for sure, but we'll show Antonio Sano first off the claim on the dirt with horses that were in the money last time out. He does a great job of getting those horses to take the next step forward. 30% win, 67% in the money, and a positive ROI of 222. She has some speed to her for sure. She stays at this level off the claim, and I just think maybe with the barn switch, Edgar Zayas climbing aboard, she might be able to take that step forward.
And generally speaking, Antonio Sano, I too looked up a stat first off the claim on the dirt in general. Out of 61 horses, he's won 28% of the time and a positive ROI, and more than half finishing in the money. So I do think that this is an alternative to perhaps the 5 Rilla, who could get bet, who has speed and does drop in class.
And the way that I kind of saw this race playing out was that Rilla is definitely going to go to the front. The number 2 Playa Zaragoza has some speed as well. I think that Summer Whites might be able to sit just a little bit behind those 2, and that might put her kind of in the catbird seat and be at a perfect spot. But certainly Rilla will get some attention on the class drop. She does fit in here.
And I don't think the 3 Olympic Smoke is technically good enough in here, but as you said, if there is a bit of a pace duel in front, it will set up for perhaps her stalking running style. I don't think she's as fast as the others, and it could be an awkward position for her. She might get caught in that chasing position, or if she can prove to settle, she very well could close from off of it. We will turn the page here to the 6th race on the card. Remember, the Rainbow Six starts in the 7th on this 12-race program. As we get to the 6th, an open 6250 claimer, 6 furlongs on the main track. Acacia, how did you see this race?
Well, I had some trouble with this race, and I did go with a horse that I thought might sit a good stalking position and actually ran a sneaky good race last time, and that's the number 5 Capital City, who dropped to this 6250 level after facing much tougher prior to that. He was only beaten a length and 3/4 last time, having to be a little bit wide, but was gaining, and I thought that there was a bit other speed in here. I think that there's speed to the inside with Stableford, speed to the outside with All About Diva. I imagined that those 2, especially from those post positions, would have to be heavily used early, and I was trying to find a horse that would be able to sit just behind them, or perhaps even be closing from a little bit further back.
Okay, well, I did go to one of those speed types, and that was the 7 Take Time to Pray. First off the claim for Ramon Moya, and overall I did find a stat, we didn't show it, but first off the claim with these low-level claimers on the dirt, the barn does really well. Out of 35 horses, they win at 31% and a positive ROI of $2.34, and gets in with that lightweight. And sometimes that just gives you the advantage. Sometimes when you go from a horse who has speed, who's been carrying 123 pounds, 121 pounds, and they get in with 114, they break out of the gate faster than anybody else, and we try to predict the pace scenarios, but sometimes that just gives them the early advantage. So those were the 2 reasons why I kind of gave the 7 Take Time to Pray a little bit of an edge.
It certainly could, especially with the lightweight, as you mentioned. We'll have to rebound off of that poor performance last time, but perhaps with the barn switch, this just might be the right place for him in here. The number 4, though, was one that I did have some interest in for Antonio Machado, taking a class drop in here. And this is another one who might sit a good stalking position.
We could, especially on that cutback in distance. But with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll tackle the 20-cent Rainbow Six and take a look at the late pick 5 right after this.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet. We are racing.
Welcome back to Gulfstream Today. Gabby Gaudette joined by Acacia Courtney, and now taking a look at the 20-cent Rainbow Six. I did come up with a ticket, and I thought that today's sequence was much tougher than yesterday's sequence, and it's a little bit of an expensive ticket, so please kind of work with me here. We do have a very big carryover today, over $500,000 in that carryover, $572,000. So I thought that we could maybe play with a bigger bankroll, $86.40. It's still under a $100 ticket. And we are using 2 horses to start things off with the 2 and the 8, using 3 horses in the next 2 legs of the sequence. I thought race 10 was definitely a spread race. It's a wide open allowance. As we move along, using 2 horses in the 11th and 3 horses in the finale. I had a tough time, and quite frankly, I was looking at the last 3 races today, and I was seeing like double, triple, quadruple, I don't know, after this entire weekend with 12 races in the last 3 races with big fields. I said, you know what? It's kind of tough today. So I did think that race 10 was a spread race, though.
Yeah, it does look like it. And sometimes you do get a little bleary-eyed or blurry, however you want to phrase it, after you've been looking at PP after PP in here. And so I like that ticket, though. It is a good guide. Sometimes you do need to spread to try and keep yourself alive to the last leg.
Okay, we get to the 7th race here, and we go 1 1/16 on the turf. We're this maiden $50,000 race. And the number 8, Talk Less, was who I scratched into. I initially really liked the number 9, Santa Americana, but the blinkers do go on for Belmont. That's a late equipment change on the number 8, Talk Less. And overall, this horse looked really green early, kind of jumping up and down. I thought never really settled in that race, but we did see that race prove to be a little productive. We had a couple of next out winners, so I thought could take the step forward with the blinker change, maybe 1 race under the belt and taking a drop in class.
And it was interesting to me that they dropped this horse into claiming immediately after that debut. He also gets Lasix, he gets the blinkers, as you mentioned. It just seemed like a lot of things going on at once, and he definitely was green. He kind of jumped and took a left turn at the start last time out, and as you said, the 3rd place finisher, Young American, moved back to dirt and did get the win next time out with a 74 Beyer speed figure. So maybe experience is all that Talk Less needed, and as you said, he does get some class relief, but I did think this was actually a pretty solid field. The horse that I went to is also getting a little class relief, but that was after flattening a little bit behind a runaway winner in Adonis Creed, the French-bred one last time out. That was against $75,000 maidens in his first turf try. So I like him here for the 2nd time on the turf.
That was a very tough for level race, and at least he did show some interest in the middle part of the race. He was at one point just kind of raiding behind the pace. Adonis Creed was just so much the best that day that I think kind of caught the rest of the field a little bit off kilter. And the 2 Austin's hat trick towards the inside was another one that I kind of liked. And going into the first turn, it looked like he was 4 or 5 wide for really no apparent reason. There was space to his inside, but just kind of got caught out in the clear there going into the first turn. And then, unfortunately, coming down the stretch, he got caught in the back of horses and didn't have a lot of room to run. But overall, I saw a huge step forward from his first performance to his second. This is the right level. I just hope he gets a clearer trip today.
He will need to have a clearer trip. I had some interest in a couple others, including the #1 Champions Maternal. I do think that this is, I give you props for just using 2 horses to start it off, and it looks like Talk Less certainly might be the favorite in here, but I thought there were a couple good horses in here, and I thought that last time Champions Maternal was pretty game. It was an off track, so now he's back to the turf, but it's a really nicely bred horse. This will actually be his first time on the turf with the blinkers, as the blinkers were added last time out, plus he drops to Claiming Company for John's Service by Giants Causeway, and he is a half to multiple graded stakes winner Moreno, so I did give him a little bit of attention today.
Fingers crossed we can get through the first leg of the sequence. I initially had 4 horses in the first leg, but obviously my ticket's already expensive enough, so I had to get rid of a couple. As we get to the 8th race, it does kick off the final pick 5 of the day. Acacia, let's take a look at your ticket.
Okay, well, I had a tough time putting the late pick 5 together too, but I did manage to pare it down to $48, and I agree with you. I think that this is a pretty tough sequence, so I'm using 2 deep to start it off with Ola, Charlotte, and Summer Reading. 4 deep in the 9th. That'll be my spread race. I believe Ron Nicoletti found a single in that race, so that seems to be about right where I spread.
God bless him.
I know, yes, indeed. And then I'm going to go 2 deep in the 10th, though that is definitely a tough race that I would have liked to use more horses in. Also 2 deep in the 11th as well, and then 3 in the finale, $48.
Well, it's kind of funny because Ron Nicoletti has these very weird singles, and they wind up always winning.
They always win.
It's like,
I don't know how he does it.
It's a race that I would never single in, and he does, and they wind up winning. He did it, I think, on Friday, so pay attention to that particular horse, as he will join us later on this afternoon.
Hopefully we didn't jinx him now.
Oh, we might have. Poor Ron. We're always jinxing him. We'll go back to a spotlight replay here, though, of the #1, Ola, Charlotte, and Battle Tux. Ola Charlotte was the #1 in this spotlight replay that we will go back and show. And this was on the 11th of January. We can see Battle Tux kind of setting the pace in there, and I believe Paco Lopez was aboard that day, making the lead at 7 furlongs and then just kind of faltering to fade to 4th. But I thought overall it was a good race from Ola Charlotte. This is a filly that hadn't been seen since September off of a victory. She stepped up to a pretty tough level of competition. We're talking about kind of a mediocre allowance optional claimer to a very tough 2 other than. Off of a layoff, she's kind of the proven commodity here, and I thought it was a useful race to step up from today.
I thought she ran very well in that race, and I did give her the top spot today too, as she definitely off of that layoff, Julian Leparoux climbing aboard. It seemed like everything really did come together and give her a good base coming into this race today. I do think that she fits in here. She was closing on the outside, and as you said, Battle Tux did set the pace that day. Also got pressed by Diamond Earring, who's in this race as well, and it looks like Battle Tux, especially being on the outside, will have to go again. So I think that Ola Charlotte could be sitting just behind any sort of speed that happens in front of her again.
And a horse that should take money is the #5, Summer Reading for Jimmy Jerkins. Another horse who is coming off a pretty significant layoff, hasn't been seen since August at Saratoga. And we will show a stat for Jimmy Jerkins with this type of move.
We will. In the past 5 years, 61 to 180-day layoff, and going from turf to dirt. Now, it's a specific stat, and it's a small sample size, but I wanted to show it because the numbers are very good. 3 out of 6 have won, and 4 out of 6 have finished in the money, and it is a $4 ROI, as we don't necessarily look at Jimmy Jerkins first off the layoff, but with this specific type of move, he does excellent work, and this horse has been running against some of the best. She ran in the Grade 2 8 bells behind Karina Mia. She had faced stakes company at Belmont in last summer, too, so off the layoff, she does look like if she runs up to some of her back class, she could be dangerous here.
And I think the 2 class horses in the race would be the 5, Summer Reading, and the #8, Bonri. These are 2 horses where the question is about Summer Reading. Can she do well off of the layoff? I think she can. Bonri, on the other hand, she has 2 races kind of under her belt recently, and she just doesn't seem like she's the same horse that she once was. So I think today could be the day to rebound, but she's really going to have to rebound rebound off of a very subpar performance in the Margate.
She was, and I remember seeing her on track before the Margate last time, and just wishing she was perhaps a little bit tighter, even second off the layoff. She didn't look like she was really back to top form, not really that focused. Maybe now third off the layoff, she will be able to get focused again. John Velasquez climbs aboard, and she does have the back class, as you mentioned.
Race 9 kicks off the final pick 4 of the day as we're heading out to the turf at 5 furlongs for this maiden special weight. And I believe this is where Ron Nicoletti's single comes into play. You use this horse on top as well. The 5 Mongo Nation for Dave Fox. And we have a stat.
We do on Mongo Nation. Dave Fox, past 5 years, first time blinkers off in maiden special weight. He is 20% win, 33% in the money, and a positive ROI of 227. Of course, Mongo Nation named in honor of Mike Francesa's fans. So I remember this horse being very highly touted in his debut at Saratoga, of course, because of the owner's story. Now he's off a little bit of a layoff since September in his race at Kentucky Downs, where he did show quite a bit more speed. I think coming off the layoff, he is beautifully bred. I think the blinkers off might help him a bit.
And blinkers off might get him to settle, definitely. And he's coming out of really 2 equivalent races in terms of his Beyer speed figure. So you would think that if he's running those numbers as a 2-year-old with the time off, now coming back to the same surface, he should be able to improve upon those numbers. And if he does, then he's probably your winner. If you look at the running lines too, a horse that was second in his debut, he came back to win a turf sprint race at Belmont, getting a 72. So there have been horses that have left that race to go on and improve. One horse that I kind of had a tough time with this race, and one of them was a 6 Straightaway May, who I thought could probably improve. First time out at Gulfstream Park West, 5 furlongs. I thought the horse was a little bit bumped at the start, but a lot of lengths kind of separated the horses in the field. They're really well kind of spread out. But I do like the fact that this horse has a race under his belt on the main track. It wasn't bad considering My Taiwan On was just really fast for Jane Spelly. Comes back to the turf. I'm trying to grasp at straws here just because this horse at least has a little bit of recent form.
It does indeed, and I like the move back to turf. He's been working very well on the Palm Meadows turf course, kind of a normal Wesley Ward move to drill some very fast works in, coming back to the turf here. And it does look like this is a good spot for him. To the outside, the number 11 Arch Villain is one that I just haven't known what to do with. He's beautifully bred. He's by Arch, a full brother to multiple graded stakes winner Taves on Ice. And they tried him on the turf last time, and he actually got the lead. He didn't run badly, so they cut him back in distance now to 1 turn on the turf. And I do wonder if that is what's going to help him. Certainly seemed like his dirt sprint race is going a little bit shorter or stronger. So he's just a little bit of an enigma for me.
It is. It's kind of an awkward horse to like, especially with that outside post position. But the 3 Poker Chips is one, too. Harlan's Holiday, Unbridled Song on the bottom side. They spent almost $300,000 for this horse at the sale. Gary and Mary West, Jason Service, first-time starter. I think that this is one that you don't want to leave off of your tickets. It's kind of the unknown. I'm curious to see how this horse looks in the paddock. But Jason Service, with first-time starter sprinting on the turf, doesn't do it frequently. He's 2 for 9. That was the best I could find over the past couple of years. So that, too, is a hard one to have confidence in. But the barn does well really anywhere that he shows up. We'll get to the 10th race on the card, the final pick 3 of the day, a 1.1 miles onto the main track for this allowance optional claimer. And this was one of the races that I was alluding to that was giving me a very big headache.
Yes, indeed. Now, I guess we should probably start with Kismet's Heels, who probably will take a lot of money given the fact that he was second to Neolithic last time out. Of course, Neolithic would go on to run third in the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup last weekend. But I thought Kismet's Heels was just kind of best of the rest in that race. He was beaten by 9 lengths. Neolithic was much the best that day in that field, and he's definitely one to respect. He's a $900,000 son of Tappet for sure. But I had a little bit of a tough time trying to put him on top in here.
I did too, and I think he is one. I was really impressed by his performance 2 starts back at Churchill because he came off the layoff. He had 1 turf race under his belt. You have to question what kind of bottom that really put into a horse like this. And then they ran him on the main track, and he really did all the dirty work in there just to be beaten on the wire by a neck. So he came back. He ran his race against Neolithic. No beating him that day. So if the price is right on Kismet's heels, I think he does have enough bottom underneath of him to perform. But there were a couple of other interesting horses, in my opinion, and one of them was the one Tathkeef to the inside for Kieran McLaughlin. This is a horse who was running against legitimate competition overseas on the turf. We see Hawkbill in the running lines. That horse is a Group 1 winner in Europe. So the fact that this horse was running well on the dirt against eventual Group 1 winners, they bring him here, put him on the main track immediately and give him Lasix. Kind of makes me think that this is a kind of a premeditated move all along. They really want to get this horse to the dirt.
Well, it definitely might be, and he actually did have his one career victory come on the all-weather tracks on the dirt in Great Britain. His last 3 races were on the turf against that tough competition. As you mentioned, he's been working very well at Palm Meadows. First off the layoff for Kieran McLaughlin, and he does get Lasix for the debut. He hasn't run since May of 2016, but he's definitely, I think, one to respect in here. We don't normally see Kieran first off the layoff. Sometimes the horses do sort of need a race, but we've mentioned this before. These horses coming in from Europe, especially with the rail post, the break is imperative in here, but I did think that he was definitely one to respect off of the kind of races he was running in Europe. But the horse that I went to does have his own fair share of questions. I know that. That's the number 9 Stone for Ian Wilkes. And last time out, there were 3 next out winners in that race. I thought it was a pretty strong performance where he finished second. A couple of nice allowance winners in December 7 and Oatfield.
Yeah, December 7 came back to win a 2 other than at Fairgrounds, getting a 94 Beyer speed figure. So his last race was very productive, but the thing that I think you have to question, although he ran well last time out of a pretty productive race, what happened to him 2 starts back at Keeneland? He looks like a horse that can do very well and then sometimes regresses in form, but Ian Wilkes' horses have been running extremely well. He had a really high-priced first-time starter yesterday, hit the Exacta, so it's kind of trickling over from a really good Churchill meet that his horses are continuing to run really well here in South Florida. A very competitive race as we turn our attention to another competitive race in the allowance optional claimer. 5 furlongs there on the turf, and no surprise that we wind up in different directions here. We will go back and show the, I think, entire race of this last performance. There was a lot going on in this last race. We see Lady Coventry. She was obviously in that race. She had a lot of trouble from the get-go. But Lady Coventry and I believe Goodbye Sorrow come out of the same race.
As does Love Flute.
And Love Flute. Love Flute had a little bit of trouble in this race. Goodbye Sorrow, I thought, was the one horse in here that didn't have that much trouble, but she was very headstrong from the get-go.
Yes, and this is a tough race to look at, and you see that Love Flute does have to steady very early on in here. And Love Flute's been in very good form lately. There's not really much to knock about her.
No, there isn't. And but the question is, and we see a whole bunch of horses checking. We can see the number 1 horse checking in there. Goodbye Sorrow, as I said, she made the lead. Love Flute was checking on the backstretch too. And then we can see the 2 Lady Coventry. She's saving ground really the entire time. She's covered up under Corey Lannery. And sometimes it's a double-edged sword, saving ground on the turf, because then you just don't get clear room to run. So out of this, I didn't really like Goodbye Sorrow. I preferred Lady Coventry, who just has no room to run during the entire stretch. We can see Corey Lannery just waiting, sitting on her back, waiting for some room to run, and it just never came. And the thing with Lady Coventry too is I think she's got back races to make you think that, okay, she was probably supposed to either win that race or run a much better race than what she did.
Well, that's why I put her on top today, and I agree with everything that you said, that she had no place to run in there. They tried saving ground along the rail. She just didn't really have any place to go. I thought she ran very well at a big price in the Distaff Dash, 2 starts back, but she's definitely one to respect. I did want to mention quickly the number 1, Port McGee, who I think might be an interesting one off the layoff for Christophe Clement, and we'll show a stat on Christophe Clement. After 100 180-plus day layoff on the turf with maiden winners last time out. He's 6 for 14, 43% in the win column, 64% in the money, and a 289 ROI. So I did use this one in my exacta, who's been keeping good company at Belmont too.
And we'll go right into another spotlight of Scuba Sue's performance last time out, because she's going to figure to take some money. She was going against horses like Spectacular Me, My Sister Caro, even Lady Coventry in the Claiming Crown Day. But prior to that, she finished second behind Blue Bahia. In this race, I thought that there would be a much hotter pace up front. I thought there was going to be a whole bunch of horses kind of contending for the lead. And when it was all said and done, they actually didn't go that fast. They went 46 for the half mile. Her and Ela were both on the front end, and I thought that she just got a really, really easy trip to get the victory.
She did, and now we've talked about all those horses. Still haven't mentioned your top selection in the 10, Gold Tinker.
Well, Gold Tinker, and that's why I kind of went against a couple different horses in here, because Alan Goldberg is actually, he does sneaky good work with his horses coming in fresh at turf sprints. Over the past couple of years with these types of layoffs, I didn't show the stat, but he's 29% out of a big sample size and a 270 ROI. The blinkers go on. She's going to show speed from the outside. Paco Lopez aboard. I thought there were a lot of things to like with a trainer who does great with this particular move.
And this is a wide open affair, if you couldn't tell from all those things we were just talking about, all the puzzle pieces moving in this race. So if you can get any sort of price on a horse that you like, this might be the place to do it.
And the 12th and final race on today's card, an open $16,000 event, a mile and a 16th onto the turf. And a horse that should figure to take some money is the number 8, Val Me Over, coming out of a really good performance last time out, in my opinion. We'll show this video spotlight replay. I did use this horse in the top couple of horses, as did you. Good performance facing open company for the first time. Remember, this is a horse who just notched the non-winners of 3 lifetime conditions. She came back and she faced open company. She unfortunately could not get past Forever Plus, who was ultra game down on the inside and who did go wire to wire. But I thought a good race to maybe give a little bit of credence for her today.
And she's actually 6-1 on the morning line. She might go down from that as we get towards post time, but there do promise to be a couple others in here that might take some attention. She's been in very good form, and that was a step up in class. One of those horses that might take some money is my top selection, the number 4, Made on a Mission, who it is a slight class relief going back down to this open $16,000 company from that starter optional claiming company last time out. Now, she didn't really show much late kick. I think she normally likes to be closer to the pace. I think on the class drop, that's why I'm giving her the nod today. She has been ultra consistent prior to that.
I want a price to wrap things up, so I went with Artemisa, and this horse does not have to win, does not even have to hit the board, but she's going to be a big price or a good price. She hasn't been that far out of it in her last couple of starts, and I like the fact she gets back to a mile and a 16th. Last time she was at this distance, she won, and she closed from off of the pace. So hopefully she gets a good pace to run into today. But I do think that your number 4, Made on a Mission, is the class of the field and one to not leave off those Rainbow Six tickets. That is enough for us today. 12 races on tap. Once again, that 20-cent Rainbow Six, we have a big carryover, over $500,000 today. So get those handicapping hats on. We're going to take a little bit of a break. We'll be back for the 12 race program, but Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes.